All right, part two. We hope that you guys enjoyed the quarterback rankings. If you're interested in that, you can just always go back. It'll be on our YouTube page. And I think we're going to set up a Spotify account and try to just get the audio on there as well. So, but for running backs, let's just dive right in. Are we going to start at number one? And I think that this one is more consensus than Patty Mahomes at one for the quarterback.
It should be. Patrick Mahomes should have been more consensus than this.
Okay, who's your number one running back?
Who do you have?
I have Christian McCaffrey.
I also have Christian McCaffrey.
Yes, Christian McCaffrey hurt, only played 3 games pretty much. And Daniel, I know you have his average points per game next to you. Please do us a favor and announce those.
Let me find him. I mean, you have to understand, man, he did not play a lot of games.
So he's going to be towards, but he averaged, I think, around 25.
Yeah, you're right. If I click the little average and it goes down for that, he averaged 24.4 fantasy points per game. And
unbelievable.
I mean,
unbelievable. Christian McCaffrey, unreal.
I will say, in our league, I consider it the most fun thing I do in my life is our fantasy football league.
Yep.
And it was like week 7, week 8. I got the biggest haul of all time for him, and I regretted it. And he didn't play another game. I shouldn't have regretted it. But he is he's a god. I love watching him play football.
Fun to watch.
And I would love to watch him be healthy again. Please.
Yep. Especially if the Carolina Panthers make a move out of quarterback position. If they go out and get a fun guy, obviously Teddy Bridgewater is a pro. Don't get me wrong. Bridgewater's not bad. And he's probably towards the end of the 2025 ranking for a quarterback as well. But yeah, Christian McCaffrey, consistence number one. The only argument, in my opinion, would be number 2, Alvin Kamara. But there are reasons for concern. And without Drew Brees, who is Alvin? That is a question that he'll have to answer. But I love Alvin Kamara. I'm obsessed with Alvin Kamara. 16 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, touchdown regression will be a thing next year. I don't think he goes for 16. But his receiving usage is where it can get pretty interesting. He had 107 targets last year. 83 catches, 756 yards. Unbelievable usage for Alvin Kamara. And, you know, the touchdowns, he had over 20 touchdowns, 21 on the year, both receiving and rushing. He's easily my number 2. And I have a feeling I know where your number 2 is, but you can go ahead and say it.
I'll talk about Alvin Kamara first because I won't talk about him as much as I say him.
Okay.
I struggle with him a lot right now because if you go back and you look at his numbers when it was Taysom Hill at quarterback,
yeah,
and I'm a Taysom Hill believer. I think
you are
quarterback. If it's Jameis, I think he's top 3 or 4. And I still have him there in top 3 or 4 because of his talent, because of his usage. He's going to run the ball 15 times a game at least, and he's going to catch the ball like he's a wide receiver because he is a wide receiver. Yeah. I struggle a lot because when you look at his stats with Taysom Hill, they are not.
Literally, and in all caps next to his name, I put reason for concern. And I've kept him. This will be my 3rd year keeping him in one of my leagues. And he's been a rock in my organization. And it's a sad day to know that his usage is just going to go down. And while there is no official word, has there been an official word on Drew Brees? I was about to say, there is no official word on Drew Brees, what he's thinking, what he's doing. So just keep that in mind. He could be. And right now he is. So I'm going number 2, Alvin Kamara. And did you say you're number 2?
I am not. I struggle at number 2 because I think there are 3 guys, including Alvin Kamara, that I can put right here.
Yep.
I put Dalvin Cook.
Mm-hmm.
I think he led the NFL in fantasy points average for running backs last year at 21 points per game. He played in 14 games. He scored 293.8 points, only behind Derrick Henry, who scored over the 300-point threshold, which is insane. You don't see it very often. I love Davin Cook. I have a lot of issues with his health, and I think everyone does.
Yeah.
Everyone has issues with Dalvin Cook's health. The fact that he made it 14 games last year is awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like when I watch him play, I think he's just like a little bit softer than everyone else on the field.
Yeah. He always gets pulled for some little kink. Like he'll get hit the wrong way and he'll have to go sit for a few plays or for a drive or 2.
Yes. I traded for him whatever week it was. And I would watch him a lot where I would get a text from you like Dalvin Cook is out. And if I wasn't watching, like I would probably watch 5 or 6 games. I would just, with no other player in the league but Dalvin Cook, I am scared. Every play, don't tweak an ankle. Don't get hurt.
Yeah.
Just like half the plays he limps off, and it just worries me a lot. So that's why my number 2 has a big. I don't like it.
Him and Alvin Kamara, both with reasons to kind of be cautious. But obviously, when they're on the field, they're unbelievable. At number 3, I have Dalvin Cook. And it's just for exactly what you said. The dude had 312 carries last year, 16 touchdowns, but also 54 targets in the passing game. He only had 1 receiving touchdown. He had, I think, what is it? Let me look. He had 361 receiving yards on the year, which is solid for a pound for pound 3-down back that he is. Again, 312 carries is insane. Obviously, there's a guy in the league that gets much, much more. But 312 is a crazy number. And I think Dalvin Cook can see another 300 carry year, especially with Kirk. If he's their quarterback getting older, Dalvin Cook can have another big year, and he can even do better receiving the ball. So that's why I put him here. I think there's a lot of upside. I think anybody really in the top 5 can probably finish number 1. Maybe even top.
I think, okay, I like the top 4, and then I will drop off.
I said I think top 6 can finish 1, and my top 6. I think each and every single one of them has a case they could be number 1.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll see as we go. Yeah. I don't
know.
know.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Derrick Henry. I mean, we argue about it a lot. Like, I don't love it. I worry about his shelf life. I mean, running backs, he is running out of time. I agree.
Quickly.
But this year, I mean, I don't see it being the year. I mean, I don't see this being the year. He was the only running back to break 300 points last year. Of any other running back, he scored 20 more points than them. I mean, he played in all 16 games, averaged 19.6 points. Man was a stud. And I mean, we've seen him when he's in the playoffs, when he makes it there, when he's in a big game. He looks great.
Yeah, he does not wear down. And it's one of the craziest things because, again, I said Dalvin Cook had 312 carries. That was insane. This man had 378. And that's not counting playoffs. This dude is whatever the term 3-down back is, it is Derrick Henry. The dude never really comes off the field, even though he has some receiving, struggles, and he's not the greatest.
How many catches did he have?
Might take me a while to scroll here.
Under 30, under 20. It is such a low number. He does not catch the ball, and we've argued about this before with other league members. Like
we have, I've had many conversations about his lack of usage in the passing game.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't. I mean, you're going to have to scroll until about 60, 70 probably, and you're going to struggle to find him. And that happens because of
52. He had 31 targets. He had 19 receptions, 114 yards. That's crazy.
19 receptions.
Gus Edwards, Alexander Madison, Dion Lewis, Jalen Richard, Chris Thompson, Melvin Gordon, Darrell Henderson, Malcolm Brown, Todd Gurley, all just to name a few running backs that had more receiving yards than Derrick Henry. Crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, those are guys that were on the field 20, 30% of the time.
Kyle Juszczyk.
Kyle Juicy Juice.
Jasicki, or whatever his name is, Juszczyk had more receiving yards than Derrick Henry on less targets and less receptions. And he's a fullback.
He's every play, and it doesn't matter. I mean, he's going to block or he's going to run it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It blows my mind.
I don't understand why he is so good. I mean, you know what he's going to do. He's either going to run it or he's going to block.
Right. Yeah. And so that was your number 3, correct? Who you got at 4?
I have Alvin Kamara.
So that's where you put Alvin.
I think that top 4 is – I put that top 4 in a little bit of a different category than all the rest.
Yeah.
And that's not to take anything away from 5 because I love 5. I think 5 might be the most talented one on the list. Same with 6, 7, 8. 5 and 6. I really love them. But that top 4, you've seen it last year. You saw it the year before. You see it consistently. You always see it. They're great players. I struggle getting out of that top 4.
Number 4 for me, Saquon Barkley. And
I have him at
Yeah, because Barkley's the guy, man, that I think is so disrespected on the 1 year he got hurt. We forget who he is. He's a powerful back, but he can also do everything. He's elusive. He's quick. He has a quick first step. He can see holes. He can break through. He can jump over you. He can run over you. He can juke you out of your shoes. He's the kind of guy that can literally be like one of those guys that we look back on whenever we're a little bit older. And, he's out of the league and we can be like, man, he was so much fun to watch. And his usage this season, as long as everything went well in his very long rehab that he's going to have, he had a lot of time. And in his long rehab, if everything went well, he is going to be excited to get back out there. And I can't wait to see it, man. I'm all in on Barkley. I'll probably be reaching out to whoever has him in our league, Daniel. But yeah, I'm all in on Saquon Barkley. I think he has a fantastic season. Not taking anything away from my number 5, Derrick Henry. I'm not taking anything away from him. But I just think Barkley's a better back when it comes down to, when it comes to the passing usage, I think he'll get 250 to 285 carries as well. I don't think they'll go over 300 with him this season. I think that they will try to ease him in, which is why I think they get the Wayne Gallman back. But it's neither here nor there. I think Saquon, top 4 running back. I can't wait to see him back on the field. And again, my number 5 is also Derrick Henry. And who's your number 5?
I have Saquon Barkley. That's why I said I think my most talented back might be at number 5.
Yeah,
I have questions that he was unhealthy last year, obviously. When will he be back? If he's back, what's his usage? How do they feel about him being the workhorse guy? Because he's a century talent. Like, he really is. He was drafted what? Where was he drafted in the first round? Do you remember?
Who, Saquon?
Yes.
He was high.
He was top 10, I believe.
Oh, wait, in the actual draft?
In the NFL draft.
Oh, top 3. I'm pretty sure he was 2. He was right behind Myles Garrett.
I think so as well. And that's what I'm saying. You don't draft running back that high unless you know. And that's why the Giants, I believe, will be sparing with him, will ease him back. And that's why I worry to put him above any of those other 4 who I just consider absolutely – they're the guys that you absolutely just plug and you play. Like, you don't have to think about it one bit.
Yeah, completely agree. And so number 6, Daniel, who you got?
Number 6, that's where I put in my absolute guy. I put in Nick Chubb. Okay. I love Nick Chubb. I think the Browns' offensive line has turned out to be absolutely awesome. They get better throughout the game. Literally, like, look at Nick Chubb's first quarter rushing and then his fourth quarter rushing. It's so much different. It's insane. I do worry about Kareem Hunt. I wish he wasn't there. But he doesn't take much away.
No, they both get about 15, 20 carries. And real quick, a little side note. Me and Daniel were watching Red Zone, and I remember Nick Chubb had a very, very rough first half. And I looked over at Daniel. I said, Daniel, how do you feel about Nick Chubb and how he's doing right now? He said, buddy, he gets stronger as the night goes on. He said he is a second half back. So he's pushing that point home today, and I love it.
He played in 12 games last year and ended as running back 9.
Yeah.
He averaged 16 points a game, which would finish as running back 5. Yeah. Counting Christian.
The only thing about Nick Chubb is that his reception usage can be a little bit low, especially with Kareem Hunt. He doesn't really pose himself as a receiving threat, and for me to be in the top 5, I mean, obviously with Derrick Henry, it's Derrick Henry's kind of changing the way people think. I know, it's hard because I love Chubb, I do, but he scares me a little, because Kareem Hunt is a very good running back. That's not a normal backup. You know what I'm saying?
I think Kareem Hunt is awesome. And I think in PPR, if these are PPR rankings, I mean, you have Kareem Hunt in your top 20. Yeah. And it's rare to see 2 top 20 backs both going to be sustained. Yeah. And I was super scared about Nick Chubb last year. And I was like, I didn't like Kareem Hunt either, but I was scared of Nick Chubb. And I think this year I lost all of those. I mean, I didn't care how often Nick Chubb was in the field. By that fourth quarter, he was breaking off a big run.
He was. Nick
Every,
Chubb.
it happened every time. The man played
Here's
12 games and averaged 16. He played great.
yeah.
In standard leagues with just rankings, how many points they scored on the year, Nick Chubb finished at 9, Kareem Hunt finished at 10.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Nick Chubb had 18 targets. Okay. Kareem Hunt had 51. Okay.
Kareem Hunt is there to catch the ball.
I know. I just wanted to throw that out there. That type of like give and take is kind of big when we look at fantasy value.
I agree, but Kareem Hunt is also a blocking back. Like he can block better than most backs, and that is why he gets the reception. He makes a great block. He slips. Baker, woo, right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Kareem Hunt is also Kareem Hunt will not finish top 10. I don't have him in my rankings, and that might be a mistake. But
I have him in mind.
I do not have him in mind. I don't think it's a mistake, at least not yet.
Yeah, it could get interesting.
It's very.
If they get rid of OBJ, he's top 15.
I don't think it's hard.
They're both top 15 if they get rid of
also,
OBJ.
I like to say these are standard. What we are doing is standard. 0 points are rankings.
You're right.
So, but I mean, like I said, in a full standard league, Kareem Hunt finished 10 last year. So,
and I'm gonna slide in my number 6 here, and it might be a bit of a surprise. I'm gonna go Jonathan Taylor. I'm really high on Jonathan Taylor coming into the year. Last season, 232 carries, 1,169 yards, 11 touchdowns, and in the last 10 weeks of the season. So he missed week 12 due to the COVID issue. His girlfriend got COVID. But after week 10, he missed one game. He had 119 carries, 741 yards, and 7 touchdowns, 6.2 yards per carry. And their record when he was on the field was 5-1. And again, that's through 6 games. This man had 741 yards and 7 touchdowns to end off the year. He's one of those guys I think that is ready to take the leap. Jonathan Taylor, before the draft process, I was so high on this kid. I thought he was the best running back in the class. I didn't think it was relatively close. I thought he'd be a stud for years and years to come, and I am jacked up for Jonathan Taylor. He's my keeper in one league, and by God, if I have to scrape and claw for him in the other league, I'm going to do it because I love Jonathan Taylor, everything he brings. His receiving was a little low. I thought that he would be a bit higher than what I saw through the stats. But I love Jonathan Taylor, and I'm putting him here at 6, man.
Is the Colts offensive line the best in the NFL?
It's between the Browns and the Colts, I would think.
I agree. I think the Colts is the best offensive line.
Quentin Nelson by far.
That is why, right into my number 7, I have Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
I love the kid. I mean, he somehow, some way, in a standard league, he finished as running back 4. I mean,
awesome.
That's really high. And then you're telling me it's a stretch to put him at 7? I
think I put him at 6. I think that some people coming into the year will be really high on him like me. I think that's why I said the top 6 guys, I firmly believe either one of them could be the number 1 back going into at the end of the year, I should say, not going into the year, but at the end of the year, I think any of the top 6 could easily be number 1. And there's always sleeper running backs somewhere. So obviously these will change as we go, but Jonathan Taylor, way too early, number 6, and you have him at 7. And at number 7, I'm going to go Ezekiel Elliott. This is where I put Zeke. I think that Zeke is unreal with Dak. Okay. When Zeke was with Dak, so before Dak's injury, he had about 4.5 games with him. He had 26.2 fantasy points, 19.2, 14.8, 16.5, and 23. In each game, he ran for a touchdown, except for one. He didn't have a touchdown, but in that game, he also had 8 receptions for 71 yards that he didn't rush for a touchdown. But once Dak got hurt, there was 10 games. He only had 5 games over 50 yards. He had 1 rushing touchdown in those 10 games, 1 receiving touchdown in those 10 games. He only had 1 game over 5 receptions and 4 games over 2. So his usage after Dak went down. And everybody thought he was a bum because he was struggling. He was struggling bad, and
Yeah.
he didn't look like Zeke that we know, and that a lot of people were like, man, this guy could be the number one back in the NFL. And he's one of the higher paid ones. He makes a lot of money for what he does. And again, the running back position can be so fragile, but I love Zeke with Dak. I love the Cowboys offense when it's fully healthy. I think it's one of the best in the league.
Answer this question for me. Zeke's season next year cannot be worse than last year.
Oh, with ease. That's a yes with ease.
Ezekiel Elliott finished as running back 11 last year.
Yeah.
I mean, and he played, it was horrible. It was not fun.
I was screaming for weeks Tony Pollard was better.
Yeah, so was I. He averaged more yards. He looked like the better back.
More elusive, actually caught the ball.
He was good. Tony Pollard looked good. And Ezekiel Elliott just didn't. Yeah. Ezekiel Elliott cannot get worse than he did last year. And he finished as running back 11. And for that reason, just like last time, I have Zeke one lower and I have him at 8.
Yeah.
So like everything you just said,
we're doing a lot of.
I know it really is. It really is right now. I don't think the next one will be though. Maybe. Who do you have at 8?
At 8, I went Aaron Jones, the unrestricted free agent, 201 yards, 1,100 yards, 9 touchdowns. Last season, 2 seasons ago now. Wow, he had that monster year. And I'm one of the biggest Aaron Jones fans in our league by far. And
in the world.
In the world. I love Aaron Jones. In the Packers offense, didn't use him that much. He only had 201 carries. Jonathan Taylor wasn't even the lead back for half the year, and he out-carried him by 31 carries, which is unbelievable. Aaron Jones doesn't get the love he deserves just because in the Packers offense, it's all about Aaron Rodgers and all about Devontae Adams.
When you own Aaron Jones, you hate Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, you do.
To happen next year if he is a Packer, which I don't think he
won't be. No, he won't be.
That was frustrating to watch because Packers got a lot of primetime games. You watch a lot of Packers games.
Yep. And
there were so many times Aaron Jones was not in the game. I would love to know what his snap count was. Do you know it? Because it is not.
I don't. I wish I did because it cannot be that much higher than Jamal Williams. I would argue they're within 25 snaps. And that is ridiculous. I understand Jamal Williams is a good running back. I get it. Like, he's solid. He's not Aaron Jones.
He's an unrestricted free agent as well, right?
Do what?
Jamal Williams is an unrestricted free agent as well, right?
I think so. I think that they have cleared a house other than they have A.J. Dillon, who could be a guy to look to make a big burst onto the scene next year.
I don't like starting a Packers running back a lot. I really don't.
No, not with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and they're going to add a weapon this year. I think this offseason is the year where they add a weapon.
Chris Godwin. I hope so.
Kenny Galladay.
I'd love to see it.
Who'd you have at 9, brother?
My 9's a little different, and you're not going to like this one, but I'm very curious to see where you have this guy because I went with Las Vegas Raiders, Josh Jacobs. I don't hate that offense. He finished as running back 8 last year. He averaged 13 points a game. He is a consistent back.
Okay.
He gets his carries, he gets his yards, and he's probably going to find the end zone for you once.
So you had Josh Jacobs. You haven't listed Aaron Jones yet, so I'm curious where you have him.
Wow.
Josh Jacobs, let's just look at some numbers here. Aaron Jones had 201 carries. Josh Jacobs had 273.
Trust me, I know.
That's 72 more carries.
That I hated that, but
and then look at the yards. With 72 more carries, you would think, hey, Josh, would you get more yards with 72 more carries? Well, sure. How about no? He had 1,065 yards. Aaron Jones had 1,104. So that's more yards. More yards, Aaron Jones. Less carries, Aaron Jones. Obviously, touchdowns with 73 more carries, you're going to get more. 12 touchdowns compared to 9. But Josh Jacobs isn't a receiving back. Aaron Jones can catch the ball. I don't see the argument where Josh Jacobs is better than Aaron Jones. I don't see it.
I don't, but we're not ranking talent. We're ranking who's going to score more fantasy points next year.
I don't see how he does either.
I don't, and you're the biggest Aaron Jones fan of all time. I mean, I knew we were going to have this argument. because later in it,
I think Josh Jacobs is overrated too. I don't like the way he plays.
Hey.
I don't like the way he runs.
When you see Aaron Jones, like, gosh, I'm in trouble. But literally, I think Josh Jacobs, he's consistent, man. He's gonna put up 14 points for you, and he's gonna do it every week.
Well, against me, he's the best running back ever.
Yeah.
I did some math. In the last 2 seasons, he averages just about 30 points against me. He hates playing against me. Whatever it is, whenever he sees me on my opponent's schedule, he circles it and goes for 30. But then every other game, he's subpar. It really frustrates me. It frustrates me. But Josh Jacobs, I can't get behind Jacobs. I don't know why.
Workhorse back. I like him.
I think it's because he reminds me a little bit of Derrick Henry. Not as good, obviously, but just he has some characteristics, not as powerful, but he's a bit more elusive than Derrick Henry. But my number 9 is Nick Chubb. That's where I put Chubb.
That hurts me.
190 carries. He didn't get a lot of carries either. Still had more yards than Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs almost had 100 more carries.
Josh Jacobs finished at running back 8 last year.
It's crazy. It's crazy. But yeah, Chubb's my 9. Who you got at 10, brother?
At 10, I have DeAndre Swift. Young guy, Lions offense. The Lions daggone suck. Okay?
Yeah.
And we all know it. They don't want to be good. But they're not going to waste DeAndre Swift. That offensive line isn't horrible. DeAndre Swift was good last year. Kerryon Johnson looked good the year before that. Yeah. That offense can produce a running back. Matthew Stafford last year still finished as a top 15 quarterback.
I have a question for you, Daniel.
Okay.
Number 1 running back a few years ago, Todd Gurley. Who was his quarterback? Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Okay. Last season, who emerged late on into the season as potentially a guy that you need to keep your eye on going into this season? Cam Akers. Who was his quarterback?
Jared Goff.
Now, who is the Lions quarterback, Daniel?
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff has such a good relationship with running backs. I love Goff. And he wasn't in my quarterback rankings. Quick spoiler alert, he wasn't. It's because of the lack of weapons that they're ultimately going to have. But TJ Hockenson, boom. And I think I put DeAndre Swift too low. He's going to move up my rankings.
I like Swift a lot.
I do too. He's a receiving back who can also – it wouldn't be crazy. And this is going to sound crazy for him to have a year like Todd Gurley had a few years ago. It wouldn't be crazy. I wouldn't put it out of the question. I don't think it's going to happen, but I don't think it's crazy for someone to be like DeAndre Swift is going to be having an incredible year.
I think his next year will be similar to a Jonathan Taylor year, and he is sneakily super dang good. He sneakily ends up in that top 5, top 6 category.
He can sneakily win you a league if you get him in the right round with a lot of people that could think low of this Lions offense. And, you know, they have every right intention. Like everybody who rates this Lions offense low is smart because they're not very good. But with a guy like Swift, he can put up some big statistical things just because of how bad they are. And he receives the ball, man. He's a good receiving back. At my 10, I have one of the most underrated players, James Robinson. This is where I have James. Is top 10. He's my number 10. I love James Robinson. 240 carries, 1,070 yards, 7 touchdowns, a little less touchdowns. I think if he's RB1, which with the Jags, I hope he is. There's no reason for him not to be. I think with that new offense, I think he gets more touchdown opportunities. And hot take alert, I think he goes for 15 touchdowns next year.
I mean, if he goes for 15 touchdowns, he's top.
I don't think he has as many yards, though. I think Trevor Lawrence throws the heck out of the ball.
I agree with that. I have James Robinson exponentially, but I think James Robinson produced the best season he possibly could in the Jaguars uniform last year. I think he played phenomenal. Amazing.
Terrible offensive line, terrible offense in general, and dude was just a star in it.
He finishes running back 7, and that's super impressive.
That is.
You have to give him props where props is due. But at the end of the day, if we were comparing talent, I don't think I would have him in the top 25.
But again, as you've alluded to earlier, we're not comparing talent.
I think he loses a lot of yards to Trevor Lawrence. I do think he puts him in better situations because I think there are more chances of maybe being in the lead for a game. Yeah. Maybe. So, I mean, that gets a better game script. I'm a big game script guy. I like
I
seeing
know
guys
you are. You like the game
like
scripts.
Swift as much as a guy like Zeke, but because I think Swift might be better than Zeke, but I like game script for Zeke.
Yeah.
That is why I started with James Robinson, especially last year.
Yep.
Because like we talk a lot of moves, right? I didn't want James Robinson last year. It's just every week it's like, ugh. I struggle starting a guy like him. But I mean, if by week 3 or 4, he could be considered a top 10 guy for me.
Yeah, I love him. That's why he's my number 10. Who's your 11, bro?
My number 11 is my guy Joe Mixon, man. That new and improved Bengals offense. We get a whole new offensive line. Oh man, Joe Mixon finished last year. He did not play how many games did he not play?
How many games did he play? He played 6 games.
Yes. He is elusive. He is a good runner.
I love Joe Mixon.
I do too.
I really do.
He loves the city of Cincinnati, man. I just feel like he is going to be really good for us.
Yeah, I think I have him a bit too low, but I wouldn't take him over who I'm about to name here, Austin Eckler, a guy that I think Justin Herbert has an unbelievable year. I have him as my number 1 quarterback going into next year. And so with that comes the resurgence of Austin Eckler's passing game usage. And while I act like it's fallen off, it's still top 5 in running backs. He got 65 targets for 403 yards and 2 touchdowns. I would expect him to go up more towards 100 targets again. Maybe not at 100 targets, but closer to 100 than 65. If the over-under was 78 or 79, I'd probably take the over. I love Eckler. I love the way he runs. I think that he gets misconceptionized by the team because he's so little. He's about 5'8", and he's not a big dude. And I think that a guy like Joshua Kelly or like a Kalen Balazs who came on late and kind of started, vulturing carries from him. I think that a guy like that, if they were to sign like a name like a bigger back off the top of my head, like a Malcolm Brown or like a Frank Gore, just a guy that can go downhill and get some yards, or Joshua Kelly, who's even in there on their team, that could vulture some carries, which scares me. But yeah, Austin Eckler at 11.
Man, put some respect on Austin Eckler's name. That kid is so good. I don't care how tall he is.
Yeah,
dude, they let Melvin
hate on him, man,
for a reason.
They Austin
knew
Eckler.
How talented he was. I have him at 12. That's what I'm talking about now. Right after Joe Mixon, you had him at 11. I have him at 12. And I think he's better than a lot of these guys I have above him. Yeah. I would love to put him higher. I really would. But I struggle with the idea of, like you said, there are other guys in that backfield who played pretty good last year when he was unable to go. But I'm telling you, Austin Eckler might be a league winner for everyone who drafts him.
I love Eckler, man.
You get past round 5 and he's still on the board, he's a must grab.
Yeah.
I love Austin Eckler. I think he's an absolute stud. He's a good player.
I love Eckler, man. And again, not a lot of people respect him. He doesn't get the work of some of these top tier backs. He only had 116 carries. He's never, like you said, never gotten the love. And I don't know what it is. Hopefully his new coach and new staff will give him some love. And I think Herbert and him are going to develop some good chemistry and really start developing there. And I think it's sky's the limit. And a guy who I think I'm about as high on him as you are, Eckler, in terms of league winning potential, is J.K. Dobbins. I think that J.K. Dobbins, he's my number 12. I think that this kid is unbelievable. And quite like Jonathan Taylor, after week 10, where they finally were like, hey, you're kind of our go-to guy now. He had 77 carries, which isn't a lot still. But he had 77 carries, 495 yards, 7 touchdowns, 6.5 yards per carries. And man, oh man, if he can become an effective weapon in the passing game, because Gus Edwards is a restricted free agent. There could be a team out there that really likes Gus Edwards and that tries giving him a big payday. And then the Ravens have to sit there and be like, do we want Gus Edwards back when we have Dobbins? They cut Mark Ingram. And there's a lot of holes opening up for my man J.K. Dobbins on one of the most runningest teams we've ever seen in NFL history, the Baltimore Ravens, over the last 2 years. With a guy like J.K. and a guy like Lamar, you got to think they keep that ball on the ground. I love J.K. Dobbins. Even with half the work, he was still an impressive back this year. J.K. Dobbins is my guy here.
I love J.K. Dobbins. Looking at Fantasy Pro rankings, they have him as high as number 7.
I want to move him up so bad.
An average of 12. His average ranking is 12, which is right where you have him at.
Yeah.
I really do. I don't see who takes carries other than Lamar Jackson.
There isn't a guy right now.
I don't see it. And I think he has a lot of talent, and I hope they don't go out and make someone take his carries, because I think
that'd be so stupid.
He's a good player. I like him a lot. I'm a little bit lower, more just the idea of what I've seen out of these other guys, more than he doesn't have the opportunity, because he has an awesome opportunity.
Yeah.
So that was your 12?
That was my 12.
My 13 is Aaron Jones. I love Aaron Jones. I loved him in Green Bay. If you tell me he goes back to Green Bay, I put him high. I worry about where he goes, and I don't know where he goes. I really don't. Troy, where do you think he goes? I know you're more into where they go than I am.
Oh, where could he go?
Dude, I don't like his options. Do
The
you?
Dolphins make some sense. They got some money. They got a young quarterback. They don't really have a belt. I love Myles Gaskin, but Aaron Jones is better. Period.
Oh,
Point blank.
Aaron Jones is top 8 talent.
Yeah, exactly. So if you can get him on like a decent deal, I don't want them to spend all their money, but they got some money, makes a little bit of sense. The 49ers make a little bit of sense. Raheem Mostert is about as banged up can get. Whereas Jeff Wilson Jr. had been solid towards the end of the year. They don't really have a consistent guy. It makes sense for them to add Aaron Jones. And then probably another team. I mean, I was going to say this because I think it'd be funny, the Buccaneers. I think that would be hilarious. They don't really have a number 1 back either. I think Leonard Fournette has made him a little bit of money with his playoff run. I think that some teams, especially like some of these guys, and it's not quite like the NBA, whereas the NBA, once some guys get their ring, they go for their money instantly. I don't think the NFL is quite – what's up?
We're going to get there.
Yeah, I don't think the NFL is quite like that, but I would like to see him in a – those are my top 3, I would think, off the top of my head.
I struggle to move him up. I don't know where he ends up. I think
his awesome talent, man. His talent.
I agree. He has awesome talent, 100%. But I struggle to move him up a lot just because of we haven't seen him be a true workhorse, in my opinion. Because in Green Bay, Matt LaFleur sucked in that situation and didn't let him run.
Yeah, it's
not
bad.
The way they could have. He could have been on the field 95% of plays, and he would have been a top 3 back, which I believe he finished as.
Let me tell you, Daniel, wherever he goes, he signed an agent this year. He normally was a self guy. He always did the business himself. He signed an agent. Wherever he goes, he will get a lot of usage. Just believe me on that. He and some money and some usage. He's had enough of these teams that he's on a good team, but he's not doing much. I think he's going to take his next step and become a guy that earns some respect. I love Aaron Jones.
Last year, he was top 5 and only played in 14 games.
Yeah,
I mean you score 211 points in 14 games.
Yeah,
he's very talented, and you're talking about those 14 games are coached by Matt LaFleur, who we have talked about a lot. Did not use him how we think he should be used. He gets used right, he could be top 10, top 8, top 5. He could be anywhere. He really could. He's a toss-up for me. Yeah. And that's why I struggle with where to play him a lot.
Yeah, I see that. At my 13, I had David Montgomery. You're a big David Montgomery fan. He kind of was one of your best moves towards the end of the trade deadline last season. 247 carries, 1,070 yards, 8 touchdowns. Just a guy, man, and he's also top 4 in targets last year for running backs. He got 68 targets, 54 receptions, 438 yards, only 1 receiving touchdown though. His touchdown numbers were kind of low. He's another one of those guys that I wouldn't be surprised if he saw a bump up in touchdowns. But the Bears offense is weird. Who knows who's going to be quarterback? Is Trubisky? Is it Foles? Is it Jameis Winston? Is it Deshaun Watson? Who do they go and get because they need a quarterback? Is Allen Robinson still there? There's a lot of question marks with that offense. Where do they go? But I think David Montgomery is the one piece you can point to and be like, he's going to be there and he's going to be just fine. And with Tariq Cohen going down like he did early on in the year, it gave David Montgomery that much more of a receiving role, and he just proved that he can maintain that role and play pretty well.
Can you guess where David Montgomery finished on the year last year?
No, but I have it written down right next to me.
Are you good? Do you know what it is?
He's 6, isn't he?
6.
Yeah.
That's insane. He did not look good until about week
13.
Yeah, late.
Yeah.
That kid was good.
Maybe week 11. Maybe I went too far. But
that kid was good. And I love him. I'm currently in a league where I'm like, do I keep him? Do I keep someone else? And I don't know. Because I do struggle with that offense. I think losing Allen Robinson hurts a lot. Because I think he was a stud. He took a lot of defensive pressure that people don't realize.
They're losing a lot, man. Losing a lot. They don't have a quarterback either.
Now, if you're telling me like Deshaun Watson ends up there, okay, David Montgomery, you move up a lot.
But have we seen a running back be great with Deshaun Watson?
Not at all. But I'm still taking that risk.
But have we seen one as good as David Montgomery with Deshaun? That's another question.
Yeah. David Johnson.
Oh, my God. Shut up. Shut up. All right. My number 14. This is where I slid.
13.
My 13? I said David Montgomery.
Okay.
Yeah. My 14, maybe it's a little recency bias. I went Cam Akers. I really love the kid. I think he can go anywhere from top 15 to 25. I think he can literally go anywhere. I don't think his ceiling is too high, but he did have 145 carries on 625 yards. He had more carries than J.K. Dobbins and almost 200 less yards. He only had 2 rushing touchdowns too, which was weird to me. He's an interesting guy, interesting kid. I'm more so just building off of the potential of the Rams offense and how I think he's going to get some goal line usage more so than last year. But they're also losing Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson, both free agents. So Cam Akers is the only guy in the room right now. So do they draft somebody? Do they sign somebody? Do they spend some money and get Aaron Jones? Like, what do they do? It could be interesting to see where the Rams go. But for now, I slide Cam Akers in the top 15.
No way Cam Akers is the workhorse back. No way. Sean McVay will not allow that. Darrell Henderson was better than him first. That's all I have to say. He should have got more carries at the end of the year. All I'm saying. I have him a little bit lower, but I agree. I think running backs in that backfield tend to play really well. It's just my issue is Sean McVay is very good about saying, I hate fantasy football owners with guys like Josh Reynolds. And who was at the end of the year who kind of touched down?
Van Jefferson?
Yes. It was just, it's those types of things. It's like someone is going to take Cam Akers' carries away, and it's going to frustrate people a lot. We don't know who it is yet. I think Henderson will be back there personally.
Really?
I do. That's me, though, because I
think he'd be a cheap option, familiar with the system.
I think 1 or 2 years, very low.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of interest for a guy like that.
Yeah.
But at my number 14 is where I put Miles Sanders. I think the kid has so much talent.
Yeah.
I loved him. I traded for him late in the year, and I didn't start him. I traded for him at trade deadline, and I don't think he ever made the starting lineup once. And that's okay. That happens sometimes. You make a bad move, and you adjust properly. But I like Miles Sanders a lot. I think that offense gets better with Jalen Hurts, maybe. I really like the read option. I really do. I think Jalen Hurts. I didn't like Doug Peterson at all. I thought he was a lot like a Matt LaFleur and took carries away from a guy like Miles Sanders. And I think now is the first time you might see Miles Sanders be a workhorse.
I remember us watching an Eagle game. It's whenever Carson Wentz was still playing. And we were watching Red Zone, so we weren't really focused on it. But Boston Scott was getting goal line carries. And it's like Boston Scott's about 5'10", and probably $150. And it's like, what in the world is Boston Scott doing on the goal line? It's literally because it's like Bill Belichick, so set on the running back committee. Like he didn't want to go away from it. Like he just wanted their carries to be about as even as possible. And the new coach, I think, favors the run a little bit more. And I think it's going to be good for him.
Miles Sanders might be top 10 talent-wise running back. Miles
State, they
Sanders
produce.
is more talented than Derrick Henry. Miles Sanders is more talented than Derrick Henry. 100%. That's a hot take. 100%. A lot of these guys are more talented than Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a stud. Look at his carries. Look at Miles Sanders' carries. Miles Sanders is a better runner than Derrick Henry.
I would argue there are a lot of backs that are better runners than Derrick Henry.
Oh, trust me. I've seen your list. It's long.
I made a list, and I can name off about 20 guys, like back to back to back to back to back, that I believe are better runners. But we won't get into that just yet. My 15, that's where I put Josh Jacobs. I still think he's a top 15 back, but I'm just not sold on him, man. I'm not sold. Who'd you put at 16?
I had 15. I haven't said 15 yet.
Oh, who's your 15?
My 15 is J.K. Dobbins. That's where I bring in J.K. I think
There's
he does.
J.K.
I love that offense. I really do. I think J.K. Dobbins is a stud. I think Lamar Jackson's a stud. Once again, I like that team. I do. And I hate it because I like every AFC North team, and I'm supposed to hate them all.
I know. I don't like the Steelers.
I don't know. That's the one. But now when James Conner and it was Antonio Brown, I kind of loved them.
Yeah, they were fun to watch.
But now the Browns and the Ravens, I think, are like J.K. Dobbins, Nick Chubb are guys I would love to own next year. But I'll tell you what, I will never
J.K.
Dobbins because we are in too many leagues together, and you're going to take him way earlier than me.
Who is it?
J.K. You're going to.
Yeah, you're not. You won't get your hands on him.
I know that. I know.
Yeah, I'm all on taking J.K. as high as you can. I think that kid.
I had J.K. at number 15.
Yeah. My number, so your 15 was J.K., mine was Josh Jacobs.
Yes.
My number 16, this is where I put Joe Mixon. I think that that's where I slid him in. He was hurt again, 6 games played. It's all about what the Bengals will do. After the offseason, he could be a lot higher for me. But as of right now, with the offensive line that we have and no moves have been made just yet, I had to adjust accordingly, which is why a few of these guys are a little bit lower than I would probably have them. But yeah, Joe Mixon at 16. Who's your 16?
Talk about Joe Mixon before you say anything like that. Joe Mixon played 6 games last year.
Yep.
And on average of guys who played more than 1 game. So they played 2 or more games. So basically, I'm just saying don't include Antonio Williams, who scored 20 points and played 1 game, okay? He was a top 10 averaging running back. He averaged 13.1 points in his 6 games. No matter how bad that offensive line was, he is shifty. He is a great runner. He's
so patient, so patient.
He is good. And that is why I think I have him so high. I think that offense gets better. Just having Joe Burrow, I don't care what the offensive line is. We can roll out the exact same offensive line. I'm putting Joe Mixon top 12.
Yeah. Some guys above him, though. Like
what?
Maybe Cam Akers, I would put Mixon above. But other than that, I couldn't talk myself into moving him up much higher without any sort of offensive line moves.
I ain't saying that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think that he was so good last year, even with a terrible offensive line. He was kind of that.
He was. He struggled a few games, but there were a few games he looked incredible. And the more we're in the red zone, the better he's going to look. Just know that. Because
I think Joe Burrow helps him out a lot.
Yeah. So did you say you're 16?
My 16th David Montgomery. I bring him in.
That's where I thought you'd be a little bit higher on him.
I want to be. I really do. But I really struggle with who's the quarterback. What else is on that offense? And he finished as running back 6 last year, averaging 14.1 points per game, which is insane because if you looked at you pull up the ESPN app and you see the 16 games, whatever, he doesn't look good for the first 10. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of recency bias, and I struggle. I feel like I want to put him higher because he almost won me a week. Like he scored me a lot of points, and I like him a lot. I really do. I liked him. I remember when it was him and Tariq Cohen. It was them two. I was like David Montgomery. I owned him that entire year. He didn't do anything for me, but I owned him the entire year.
And I was a big David Montgomery hater.
Yeah, you were a big Tariq Cohen. We argued about that a lot, but I love him. I think he has a lot of talent. Good bot. I really like David Montgomery. But I struggle putting him above 16 because I don't know what else is on the offense. Who's the quarterback?
Yeah.
I think they have Allen Robinson back. Do they even have a weapon other than Allen?
Yeah. Daryl Moody. Like,
I don't like that. I don't.
Anthony Miller. Like,
you're going to pack the box. If that's the top 3, you're packing the box for David Montgomery. And that's why I struggle with that.
Yeah. And at 17, that's where I put Miles Sanders.
Who's at 16?
I had Joe Mixon.
Okay.
Yeah. And then 17, Miles Sanders.
Okay.
Who's your 17?
My 17 is James Robinson. I finally put him in. I struggle with James Robinson still.
I know you do.
He played amazing in Jacksonville last year, and I absolutely loved him. And I do think his game script gets better. I think this is where we're starting to get, for me, it's after 17, there is a big gap. And now there's a lot of gaps in here. But this top 17 are all, in my opinion, guys I can draft, and I am no issue starting them first 3 weeks. No issue. If healthy, these 17 I will start week 1. Yeah. 100%. And that's how I feel when I go into a draft. I like running backs. I'm a running back. Give me 4 running backs immediately. These 17 are guys I love draft. Yeah. So nothing against these guys. And a lot of these guys are interchangeable. I wanted to put James Robinson above JK and probably even, like, you don't want to say this, but probably Aaron Jones. I struggle putting Aaron Jones as high as I did.
Yeah.
I like James Robinson a lot, but these top 17, especially between probably 10 and 17, all have a question mark beside them.
Yeah.
And you can put them in any order you want.
Yeah.
But I like them all. But James Robinson, let me see a little bit more.
Yeah, I got you there. My 18 is kind of a guy you can say the same thing, Antonio Gibson. 170 carries, 795 yards, 11 touchdowns. I think he's due for some touchdown regression. But then, who's their quarterback? That's the same question here. Is it Taylor Heinicke? Is it? I don't think it's Alex Smith. I think he's about done. It's, then you start looking around the league. You're like, do they make a move for Derek Carr? Do they make the move for Deshaun Watson? Because they weren't in the sweepstakes for Matthew Stafford. I think the price probably got way too high for them. But if they get a guy like Deshaun Watson and bring in Will Fuller, I've had this theory. If they do that and then sign Will Fuller, you make that signing to make your quarterback happy. He loves Will Fuller. He's best friends with Will Fuller. And whereas, Terry McLaurin will now have a number 2. And you look at that offense, you're like, oh, Lance Thomas is also a very good pass catcher. Oh, Antonio Gibson, very good. Oh, hey, J.D. McKissick, even though you are unrestricted free agent, I think that they bring him back. He had a very good year. And then you start looking around that team. Oh, their defense almost beat the Buccaneers with Taylor Heinicke as their starting quarterback. Then you're like, oh, so this team in the NFC East has Deshaun Watson and that offense paired up with that defense. You're starting to flirt around with some playoff, very far into the playoff hopes there. But yeah, Antonio Gibson, my 18, and that's with the hope that they go out and do something.
It's hard not to want to buy when you're in the NFC East.
Yeah, because you can win now.
Yeah, you gotta be, in my opinion. I don't know. I have Antonio Gibson a little bit lower. I don't like Antonio Gibson. He's another one of those small guys.
You don't like him?
I struggle with him.
I get it.
Good player.
I love Gibson.
I think he's the type of guy that can use a lot of carries if they sign anybody.
Yeah,
I have a little bit lower, not much lower. I'm right there with you. I do like him. I like that team a little bit. I don't know why. Maybe it's because you play the NFC East teams twice a year. Maybe.
But their defense is so tough and it's young. They need to do something now while Chase Young isn't making stupid money, because that dude's going to be making a lot of money.
Yeah. They're in a great opportunity right now. They should go out and trade for somebody. And then maybe you have Antonio Gibson spot. But my 18 is these next few are where we really get spotty. This is where you're really like, ooh. Yeah. Did he really say that? Here's where I see A.J. Dillon. Crazy, man. Come on.
You just told me that you don't feel comfortable starting a Packer, and now you're going to put him in your top 20.
I am.
He's not even in my top 30.
I told you when we were talking about Aaron Jones leaving. I said, whoever their number one running back is, I want. They made Jamal Williams look awesome. I don't think Jamal Williams is that good. He's a free agent. He won't be back because the Packers will not pay a running back. That has become very clear.
It has become very clear.
So it is going to be A.J. Dillon and an absolute cheap guy or a guy they draft.
A rookie guy.
Top 3 rounds, probably.
I would argue they'd probably wait till like 5th or 6th.
I agree. I think they will as well. With what they usually draft, yeah, and they drafted a backup. Yeah. They're not drafting.
They drafted A.J. Dillon, who was a 3rd-string running back in the 2nd round last year.
Yeah.
And a 3rd-string quarterback in the 1st. Sometimes their draft logic confuses me.
And I hopefully they go wide receiver.
Get Aaron Rodgers help ASAP.
I don't think that they might. I hope they do. They might not.
Yeah.
So. But I think A.J. Dillon, I mean, dude, he's the guy, in my opinion, that if it was not Aaron Jones, it should have been him on the goal line. Yeah. If it wasn't, it should have been Aaron Jones, but it was due to Jamal Williams, which didn't make sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense.
But if it's A.J. Dillon and a 5th-round rookie, A.J. Dillon has the opportunity to go on one of the best teams in the NFL who scores a lot of points.
Yeah, and he's a big body. My 19 is DeAndre Swift. This is where I put Swift. And again, I want him a little bit higher after I talk myself into it. But I will move him.
19 for DeAndre Swift.
I will move him up. But yes, 19 for now.
That's
Who's your 19?
19 is Cam Akers.
I can see it. That's probably where I'd flip if I could. It's Cam Akers.
That surprises me that as soon as I said DeAndre Swift, you got excited. And I said,
I know.
That surprises me.
The Lions team scares me, but I think I've talked myself into a Swift believer.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of bad teams. Dalvin Cook and the Minnesota Vikings were pretty bad last year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It was not a fun team to watch, at least for me. He was top 3. He was the best running back in football.
Yeah.
Last year.
And rounding out the top 20 for me, I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This is where I put in the young and CEH. 181 carries for 803 yards. Dude is a very good running back. People doubt him, man. I think he can be another one of them league winners. Because this year, everybody was like, oh, get this man in the 1st round. Now he didn't play up to par. Yeah, Daniel. Now he didn't play up to par, and now people are going to be like, well, the Chiefs' offense is this, Chiefs' offense is that. But if you listen to me now. Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be the guy who'll have over 1,000 rushing yards. He'll have over 10 touchdowns.
10 touchdowns.
He'll be above 20. I just wanted to put him here because he is one of those guys that not a lot of people are thinking about. He's one of those guys, man, that could easily, and I mean easily, be top 10.
I agree.
With ease. And if you can get him somewhere in the 6th round, 5th round.
He ain't following that love, man.
I'm just saying, 4th, 5th round, that's whenever these guys start really them high flyer running backs start going off the board around the 5th, 4th round. So that's even a steal in my opinion. J.K. Dobbins and
steal.
Yes. If he's sitting there in the 4th round of your draft, grab him instantaneously. Instantaneously. But yeah, he's my 20. Who rounds out your top 20?
That's where I put Antonio Gibson. I don't love it.
So you still haven't said CEH.
No, I will go into it now. I have CEH at 21. So right outside of it, flopped it around a little bit.
So you have Gibson and then CEH.
Gibson.
That surprises me a little bit. I thought you'd have CEH above Gibson.
I agree. I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire has more competition than Gibson does. I worry about that. I don't know. But they're the Kansas City Chiefs. They can go get anybody they want. Yeah. They brought in Le'Veon Bell. That scared everyone when he did that. Right?
It did.
I mean, who's to say that a guy similar to that?
Let me tell you, a guy who I think makes a wee bit of sense that isn't well respected, but is a really good back, Chris Carson. Sit on that one for a little bit. For the Chiefs. Chris Carson.
I love Chris Carson.
That's a guy I could see the Chiefs being like, we can get him a little cheaper. We can get him a little cheaper, or like a James Conner, Hey,
I had Chris Carson in my rankings, so.
I do not. Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah, I have no rankings, but I have CEH at 21.
My 21 is Myles Gaskin.
Okay, I didn't rank him, and I don't.
If he's RB1, if he's the RB1, you are getting rushing, you are getting receiving, you are getting a young quarterback that in Tua has a quick trigger. He's not one to sit in that pocket and let things develop. It's either a quick hitter down the field, it's a quick hitter down low, or it's Gaskin. Hey, bail me out. And Gaskin is one of those guys that can have an Austin Eckler-esque year and really catapult. And again, we're saying a lot of league winners here, but he has the potential to be that kind of guy.
These are the guys who do win the leagues.
Yeah.
It's not the Saquon Barkley that you take at pick number 5. Those are the givens.
Yeah, if you pick Saquon top 5, which is where he was going last season, same with Zeke. Some of those guys that we deem as set it and forget it, they can also get hurt or something happen to where, like with Zeke, something bad happened and made him look bad. Saquon got hurt. There are situations like that arise that your 5th round, 4th round, 6th round drafting has to come in clutch. And obviously your waiver wire ads and all that. But these 4 through 7, 4 through 8 rounds in a standard draft are so pivotal to your team because it builds. I grabbed J.K. Dobbins in the family league, 12-team league in like the 7th or 8th round. I grabbed J.K. Dobbins. This man was starting in my lineup the whole playoffs, putting up 20-plus points week in, week out. It's half-point PPR. The dude put on a show for me and catapulted me into that league-winning category, and I won my league. And he's much of the reason as, some of the other moves I made. But that J.K. Dobbins in the 7th round, it's these kind of guys that you can get a little bit later that you are like, okay, he has the potential. It may not, like a Zach Moss, who I'm sure you might get to. Zach Moss has that potential to be a little sleeper that you get later on that you just kind of hold on to. That's kind of what I did with Latavius Murray this year. Didn't really pan out except for like 1 or 2 games. But just a couple of guys there. And Myles Gaskin is a name that I would throw out there. He's my 21.
I agree. I was just thinking, I wish we had ADP pulls up just because it's those guys. I mean, David Montgomery, James Robinson, Antonio Gibson, probably Raheem Mostert, Chris Carson, Deondre Swift, just to name a few. Those were guys that were probably ADP below 50.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%. And I know for a fact Antonio Gibson was a waiver wire ad. And I know for a fact James Robinson was. Those two weren't even drafted.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that is where these are the guys that, you pick the right one, you're going to get the right thing. And that's how it goes.
Yeah. And I picked Raheem Mostert last year in the family league at pick 94. And that's in a 12-team league.
Yeah, and at the time, a lot of people were like, who's Raheem Mostert?
Yeah, I know. It's one of those guys, man. And so who you got at 22?
At 22, I put Kenyon Drake.
That's where you slid Drake in.
I put Kenyon Drake in there. I like that.
He is outside my top 25.
Really?
Just
I
barely.
don't blame you. Where did he finish last year? How low?
12th.
12.
A lot higher than you thought, eh?
A lot higher than I thought. I'll give you that. That's
10 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards, 239 carries.
averaging 11.2. I will say, though, he was seen to be dropped in leagues at the end of the year, though.
Yes, he was.
With the shallow bench, he was dropped.
Without a doubt. I mean,
I don't blame that. And I struggle picking him because
he was ranked 46th in targets amongst running backs.
Where would you draft him?
Now?
Yeah.
Depends what team. He's another free agent. Depends what team he goes to. And he's one of those guys that I'm probably staying away from, if I'm being honest.
I agree.
I don't want any part of him. I don't want any part of James Conner. I don't want any part of those guys. Raheem Mostert's another one I don't want any part of next year. Back
to David Montgomery real quick. These are the guys who had a higher ADP than him. Devin Singletary, Mark Ingram, Melvin Gordon, Todd Gurley, Raheem Mostert, Le'Veon Bell.
Crazy. That's crazy to think of. So who was your 21 again? Or
my 21 was Kyler Slayer. My 22 was Kenyon Drake.
Okay. My 22 is Ronald Jones II. Because as we know right now, he's the number one back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he did not have a bad year. 192 carries, 978 yards, 7 touchdowns. Ronald Jones was another one of those sneaky good backs. And I actually traded him in one of my leagues.
I don't have him in my rankings, and I kind of regret that. I like that number. I don't know. I think do you think he's the starting back?
No.
I don't either. That's why I didn't have him.
Yeah, I don't think he is, if I'm being honest. And but as of right now, he is. And that's kind of where I had to give him a little bit of respect and a little bit of love. Because towards the end of the year, I mean, Leonard Fournette was outplaying him, period, point blank. And I don't think I think the Buccaneers go a different direction. I think they can get a veteran guy like an Adrian Peterson or somebody and get 2 backs. I think they're going to go full platoon next year.
Adrian Peterson back out.
He could. I heard some rumors that he wants to be a Buccaneer, but like I said, I would love for them to kind of make some noise with a Kenyon Drake, like an Aaron Jones. I would love for them to get a guy that you can kind of consider to be like, wow, okay, that's a number 1, and then Ronald Jones can be a steady number 2, and that running game could look elite.
I agree with that. And you had him at 23?
Ronald Jones, 22.
I got you. At 23, that's where I stick in Raheem Mostert. I think
he is not in my rankings.
Really? Now, I'll tell you this. At the end of last year, there was chances people would have traded a lot for that guy.
I know.
People thought he could be the guy who won leagues.
I know.
They really did. And, I mean, I don't love him. Is he a free agent?
Raheem, I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I thought he was a 49er. And the 49ers want to win next year.
Yep.
They want to win the Super Bowl next year.
As they should. They were there a year ago.
If Raheem Mostert's at running back, I like him a lot higher than where I have him at number 23.
Now, the question with him is, can he stay healthy?
No.
Because this year, literally, if he took a wrong turn, it's like he turned his ankle and was out for 4 weeks. But and now then he'd come back and step the wrong way and be out for another 6. It's like, like at some point, I love Raheem Mostert. I think he can be one of the most talented backs in the NFL. Especially with the usage that the 49ers give running backs. But at the end of the day, you have to be on the field, and it scares me, man.
I agree, but I would have said the exact same thing last year going into last year's draft about Dalvin Cook.
100%.
I'm not saying same talent at all. Saying anything, probably not.
Yeah.
But I'm saying I didn't expect him to play all 15 games last year. How many? He played 14 games, I believe.
Yeah.
He played 14 games, which is more than he's ever played in a season. And I mean, if Raheem Mostert, how many did Raheem play last year? You know?
I got it right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Wilson Jr. outscored him last year.
He put together a good end of his year.
He did. Raheem Mostert finished as running back. Yeah, 47. Averaged 10.5 points.
Yeah.
We're excited for him coming back. It's the idea of how long can he stay on the field when he's on the field.
Yeah, that's kind of where I went. And so for my 23rd, this is where I slid Chris Carson. Another one of those guys doesn't get a lot of love. And I think if he goes to a team that needs a tailback, we've already listed like the Miami Dolphins, Tampa Bay Bucks, the Chiefs. This is one of the guys that I think with the Chiefs could really flourish. This guy like do what?
He has a lot of talent.
And I don't think he'd want a lot of money to go to Kansas City. I don't think he would. What did the Seahawks signing back? I don't know. But Chris Carson, 141 carries, 681 yards, 5 touchdowns. He finished top 20. He was 18, I think, last season. And he's just one of those guys. I would love to see him on a really good team. Really good team. Who's your 24?
Chris Carson finished as running back 16 on the year last year in only 12 games, averaging 12.6. Another guy similar to a Joe Mixon. When he was on the field, he looked really good.
Another guy you can get late in the rounds, kind of bonafide or solidify that.
We still have to understand these are the way too early rankings, and we don't know what team he is going to play for.
Yeah.
So that's a little different. But at 24, that's where I toss in Zach Moss. The potential
toss him in.
I like Zach Moss. I do. I thought that he deserved a little more usage last year when he was healthy. I don't know. I thought that he was kind of one of my flyer guys that I was like, okay, if I have to put a guy right here, I like him there.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to that earlier. I said, he's one of those guys that I think you're going to touch on when it comes to late in rounds if you just need a flyer option to stash on your bench. But if the time's right and he's rolling, you can plug him right in, or it gives you another trade piece that you can move to get if you want a better quarterback, or if you want a better wide receiver, or if you're one of the guys like myself that always finds themselves in a tight end battle trying to figure out who the heck is their tight end. You can try to get one of the top end tight ends, but having a guy like him in your mid rounds and just stashing him on your bench is never a bad idea. It's never a bad idea. My 24, I went Kareem Hunt. That's where I slid Kareem. 198 carries, 841 yards, 6 touchdowns, and was a top 10 running back last year. Don't see that happening unless something happens, like I said, with Odell. Then I think Kareem Hunt would slide up. But yeah, I think Kareem Hunt 24. I think it's a good spot for him.
I agree. I like Kareem Hunt. I did not rank him. Kareem Hunt's ADP last year was 68. That is, the person right above him was the David Montgomery. So that's 66, 68 right there. And then right behind that, listen to this actually. The 4 running backs right here in this little order at 27, 28, 29, and 30, okay? David Montgomery, Kareem Hunt, Deondre Swift, J.K. Dobbins.
That alone could be your running back room. And
you would be so happy. Right, all 4 of those are making all 4 of our lists. Besides, I don't have Kareem Hunt, but right there, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. And these are the running backs that if you do a little research, and we'll give it to you at some point. Not yet, we don't know. Especially like Chris Carson, we don't know where he's going to end up. But I agree with what you're saying there. I like him a lot too.
Yeah. So who it rounds out your top 25?
This is where I put in Chris Carson. I think he's a talented back. I liked him. I owned him for a good portion of season before last season. A lot. I like Chris Carson a lot. I think he has a lot of talent.
The Seahawks are one of them teams, man, that frustrate me with running back usage. They kind of remind me of the Packers. They just like Chris Carson started rolling, so they drafted the first round Reggie Perry, and he ended up being terrible. Or Rashad Penny, my bad. And then they brought in obviously they had some running back issues, and they brought in like DJ Dallas, and then they started listing off all these guys that would just steal carries away from Chris Carson. It's like, what are we doing? Like, I understand you're trying to maintain the health of Chris Carson, but dude produces when he's out there for you. So why not give him the ball?
I mean, he did struggle to stay healthy a little bit last year.
Yes, he did.
He played in 12 games. I don't know. I really liked him last year. I liked him the year before last. I think if he ends up in the right system, like if you say Kansas City is where he ends up,
happy man.
But I would slide him 6 or 7.
Yeah, with these. My 25, rounding out my top 25 is Melvin Gordon.
Okay.
215 carries, 986 yards, 9 touchdowns. He was finished 17 last year, which was a little lower than I thought, especially with those kind of numbers. He looked like he had a really good year on paper. Some off the field issues arose towards the end of the year, but Melvin Gordon, he's a consistent guy, man. And again, I'm not sure if he's a free agent or not. I can't remember if he signed a 2-year deal or not with the Broncos. But if he is a free agent, he's another one of those veteran guys that you can plug in, and he can be a consistent guy for like the Buccaneers or somebody like that. But if he's a Bronco, even then, I still trust him, and he's one of those guys. I think he's a top 25 guy this year.
I'm really shocked to see you put Melvin Gordon above Philip Lindsay.
I'm high on both. I like both, but I trust Melvin Gordon staying on the field. Then I trust Philip Lindsay, man. I feel like Philip Lindsay always is hurt with something. And the Broncos saw something to have to bring in Melvin Gordon. They didn't just do that after Philip Lindsay's great year. They obviously saw something. And so I love Melvin Gordon. I always have. He won me a league early on in my young fantasy football career, drafting him in like the 6th round, and he was like unbelievable. And I always have a special place for Melvin Gordon. I love it. I'm really high on the Broncos too. I really like that offense. And I can't wait for Cortland Sutton and those guys to get healthy and get back out there. But yeah, Melvin Gordon, 25.
I agree. One more question. Say Chris Carson ends up a Chief. Do you slide him up above Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I struggle with that because when I said I would slide him up 6 or 7, and then I have Clyde at 21.
Yeah, I've Clyde at 20. And
Carson
at 23. No. I'd probably keep him. If he signs with the Chiefs, I would keep him where he's at, 23. Keep Clyde
I
at
think
20
to 22, right behind Clyde.
Yeah, they might be 2021.
It might be.
But
That's I hope that he doesn't end up there for Clyde Edwards-Hilaire's sake.
Me too. I think Edwards-Helaire is just so tough. I think he needs a year to be the guy. The guy. Let him be the guy, Chiefs. Listen to us. Listen to us, Kansas City.
I wish it was last year, but
you have any sort of closing remarks? Anybody that you kind of want to shout out in terms of the running back that you think could be a little steal? Or
man, I mean, understand that running backs are what win a league, in my opinion. Especially, I mean, these are standard rankings ones. This is 0-point PPR.
This is a position as well that if you go all in on the first round for a guy like a Dalvin Cook, for a guy like for an Alvin Kamara, one of those guys, don't be against a handcuff. I love handcuffs. I'm all about handcuffs. I know Daniel's not. I was Mr. Handcuff. I loved having handcuffs. Because let's be honest, when an Alvin Kamara goes down, who are you going to trust? Latavius Murray. He's going to be a top 5 back.
I mean, look at those. I mean, let's hear your bench last year. Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard,
Latavius Murray.
That was your bench last year.
I went all in on the handcuffs.
I mean, Giovanni Bernard even.
I did. I stashed a lot of those guys, and it was a lot of it had to do with the COVID situation. So I'm not sure if next year I'll have the same strategy. But last year I went heavy on the handcuff. But if you go in with like a first or second round running back, it's always a nice idea to have their replacement stashed, just so you're not scrambling if they, unfortunately get some type of season-ending situational injury, which would always suck, but it happens, and it's football, so it's going to happen. So it's always nice to have that backup plan in place.
Lastly, give me a guy between 15 and lower who could end up being top 5.
For me, Myles Gaskin.
Myles Gaskin, really? That shocked me. I should have said, I'm going to go, where do you have JK?
12.
Okay, I hate this because my 15, 16, 17 are JK, David Montgomery, and James Robinson. And I think all 3 of those could go top 5, but I hate saying that because I know that you have them above top 15. So I'm going to go Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yep.
He's the guy in Kansas City. And I hate to say that because last year I said the same thing, and I drafted him. I mean, there's 3 keepers, so it's technically 41 ADP, 41 overall. But I think he is a steal. You have to watch that running back. I like him.
The Chiefs stay fluid, man.
They do.
Chiefs stay fluid.
Especially if your Patty Mahomes at number 8 comes true, someone's taking touchdowns.
That is for sure. Hey, quick shout out, Daniel. This was a lot of fun. I can't wait for next week where we will dive into wide receivers and sadly tight ends, I guess. But wide receivers is for sure. We'll discuss tight ends a little bit here and there. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. We really appreciate it. If you have a ranking or if you're really into fantasy football, let us know down below what you guys think. And so again, we appreciate you for watching. Daniel, you got anything to say?
Like and subscribe, man. See you next week.
See you next week.